We're back on the Sports Zone. I am Mike Aglialoro. Now that Jake Dixon has started the Sports Zone's 2014 NFL Draft coverage with his look at the top 5 cornerback prospects for the draft next month, we're going to do this twofold. We're going to do the top 5 at each position, and we're going to do a division-by-division preview, the moves they've done so far, who has improved the most, and what are these teams' needs heading into the NFL draft. And we're going to start with the NFC East. We're going to start at the seller of this division, which is where the Dallas Cowboys have put themselves. They're coming off 3 straight 8-8 seasons, fighting for the division title at the last day of the season, and they've completely put themselves in a position so far where they have entirely fallen behind everybody else in this division. They were forced to cut Miles Austin and the big one, DeMarcus Ware, taking away from a defense that already was one of the worst in the league and was historically bad last season, is already replacing Monty Kiffin as the play caller with Rod Marinelli, and now you're taking away its best player. The players that they have left, guys like Sean Lee, Bruce Carter, and Morris Claiborne, and Brandon Carr, who was signed to the big 5-year contract a couple seasons ago, have been wildly inconsistent and hurt. And now you have to replace the captain. And you also have to replace arguably the best player on that defense last year, defensive end Jason Hatcher, who signed with the Washington Redskins. So you need to replace everything on that defense. And if I'm the Cowboys, I'm also looking at trying to add a couple more pieces to that offensive line, whether it's guard or maybe another tackle. You have to add something around the great center you took last year, as much as what they did before that was maligned. Travis Fredericks looks like the starting center for this unit for the next decade, and you still have Tyron Smith at left tackle. So those are the needs for the Cowboys, and right now they're looking like a last-place team. Moving up, New York Giants have definitely made the most moves in this division. Coming off, it was a lost season for them. Obviously, they added a cornerback with Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie and Walter Thurman. They have added pieces to their front seven in defensive end Robert Ayers, linebacker Jameel McClain from the Baltimore Ravens, and they did re-sign linebacker John Beeson, cornerback Stevie Brown, and Tremaine McBride. The big loss for them was losing the heart of their defense over the last few seasons, Justin Tuck. And they also lost Hakeem Nicks. He wound up signing a 1-year contract with the Indianapolis Colts. I got to be honest, I don't really think the Giants are going to be hurting at wide receiver too much. I trust in Ruben Randall. I think he's going to have a banner first full season as the starter. I do like the fact that they brought back Mario Manningham. Obviously, the big name for them is still Victor Cruz. They do need to add a tight end or two, and I hate what they're doing at running back right now. They've chosen not to re-sign Andre Brown, who looked great when he came back off the injury towards the end of the season, and they're replacing him with Rashad Jennings. He's a volume carrier. He's a guy who's going to get you 100 yards a game if he gets 35 carries a game. He's not better than Andre Brown. And as much as they are praying that David Wilson can come back off of his neck injury from last season, they need more at the running back position. I like the moves they're making a lot along the offensive line, though. They've brought in 4 offensive linemen so far this offseason, restructured Chris Snead's contract. They cut ties with David Deal and David Bass. This is a unit that still has the tackle that they took in the first round of last year's draft in Justin Pugh. And they added from the Kansas City Chiefs, guy who could play tackle or guard, and Greg Schwartz. From the Washington Redskins, they added center J.P. Walton. They added from the New Orleans Saints tackle Charles Brown. And the questionable one in my eyes is the guy they added from the Miami Dolphins, who was involved in the bullying scandal, the guard John Jerry. So they may not have added a lot of starters at these positions. Schwartz is the only one who really started for the Chiefs last season. And in Walton, you're adding a guy who was a part of a terrible offensive line for the Washington Redskins. So you're at the very least hoping for a change of scenery. But outside of Schwartz, you're not really bringing in anyone from a starter standpoint, at least I would think. So, the needs for the Giants, they still need more from a front seven standpoint. They did a lot of cornerback, but they may want to add another safety or two. They definitely need more at running back, and they could use more along the offensive line. To my way of thinking, the top two teams in this division right now are the Washington Redskins and the Philadelphia Eagles in that order. Eagles, of course, ties with DeSean Jackson, who has ended up with the Washington Redskins. And lately there's been a lot of clamoring that this is the move that sees the Redskins past the Eagles, and I don't believe that just yet. Next year, the onus is going to be on Robert Griffin III, not just about how he handles things a year removed from the big surgeries and how he looks in his recovery, but is he really the prima donna he was made out to be last season? Of course, the Shanahans are no longer in power. It's Jay Gruden at head coach. He has a chance to start over there. But it's going to be about how he handles things. Can he handle things better than he did last season? Truthfully, I like what the Redskins did, not just in adding DeSean Jackson, but in re-signing Santana Moss, adding Andre Roberts to Pierre Garçon at wide receiver. So they have a lot of depth there in my eyes. They still have the second-year man at tight end, Jordan Reed. And they do still have the running backs, Alfred Morris, who's had a huge past couple seasons, and Roy Helu backing him up. So this team is fine in terms of a skills position standpoint, but I would still like to see them get more along the offensive line to be able to protect Robert Griffin III so he doesn't have any more injuries and so he doesn't have to take any more unnecessary risks. This is a team in terms of a defensive standpoint that brought back Brian Orakpo as their franchise player. They re-signed linebacker Perry Riley. They also brought back cornerback D'Angelo Hall, Brendan Merriweather. And then they added guys like Ryan Clark at safety, Akeem Jordan at linebacker, and they added Terry C. Porter at cornerback. So they made some strides from a defensive standpoint. They also added former Cowboy Jason Hatcher at defensive end. I still think they need more in terms of front seven, and they probably could use another safety or two because someone like Ryan Clark, as much as he's great for the locker room, he is getting up there. So they could use more depth from that standpoint. Top team in this division, as much as it kills me to say it, it's still the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Foles is coming into his first full season at starter, and as much as they are taking a gamble on replacing DeSean Jackson by bringing back Jeremy Maclin and Riley Cooper at wide receiver, they did do the smart thing by trading a mid-round draft pick for Darren Sproles from the New Orleans Saints, adding him to LaShawn McCoy out of the backfield, and now they have more incentive, obviously, to line Sproles up at wide receiver. I already liked what he was going to bring from a short game standpoint. To my way of thinking, this does not entirely replace Jackson, but it's a decent start. They're another team. I would like to see them add more along the offensive line. Maybe they do that in the draft. They need a lot more on the defensive end, though. More in terms of the front four, and they could use more in the secondary. They haven't been that active, but their only move so far bringing in cornerback Nolan Carroll and safety Malcolm Jenkins. So they've at least started to address the secondary. I like their linebacking core, but they entirely need more in terms of the front four, defensive end, defensive tackle. Hatcher's a nice start. You need more, though. So, again, right now, if I got to rank these teams from worst to first, Dallas Cowboys at the bottom of the division, and they need help all over the defense. Secondary, front seven, you name it, they need it on defense. And they definitely could use more in terms of guards, offensive guards, and they need help at running back at the very least to get a nice little tandem partner for DeMarco Murray. Giants are still third in the division. They've taken a lot of strides so far. I would like to see them add another running back. I don't look at wide receiver as a weakness for them. They still need help on their defense. They need to add more from a front seven standpoint. And they could stand to add another safety. Redskins have definitely taken a lot of strides coming from the cellar into this division. I wouldn't touch anything from a skill player standpoint. I would like to see them add more along the offensive line, the front four, and probably, if you're going to address the secondary, some probably want to start at the safety position. And unfortunately, like I said, Eagles are still the best team in this division. I would definitely try to add a number one wide receiver in the draft, or at least someone you can groom to be the number one wide receiver. Like everybody else in this division, you need help along the offensive line, and you need help defensive standpoint, front seven, probably another cornerback or two. That's going to wrap it up for us. Take a look later in the week. We're going to come back and look at the AFC East, their needs and who's improved the most. Check out some of the other articles on This Is SportsZone. You got Jake Dixon's top 5 cornerback prospects for the NFL draft. You got Jay Rofsky's footage from the Brooklyn Net game against the Detroit Pistons Friday night. And we're going to have some other stuff later the week as guys like Dave Tice, Tom Limbo, George Murphy, and the whole other cast. Visit us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, check us out on Tumblr, vicehood.com, my YouTube page. I want to thank everyone for watching. Once again, for This Is SportsZone, I am Mike Aglialoro. We will see you next time, folks.